Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for this virtual press conference. We're here to announce that over the weekend, the City of Harrisburg and Impact Harrisburg joined together to award over 300 businesses throughout the city with grants, sustaining grants of $5,000 each. That's a total of over $1.5 million in grants, which is even more than the $1 million that we had proposed originally for the fund. These businesses represent a great cross-section of Harrisburg. They include restaurants and retail and nonprofits, and we're particularly pleased to announce that every business that applied, that qualified, was awarded a grant. So everyone was a winner in the city. In terms of broad-based statistics, that represents grants going to over 20% of all licensed businesses in the city of Harrisburg, and particularly with a focus, though, on the smallest of the small neighborhood businesses that really weren't able to find any other relief out there. The majority of the grant money went to the very small businesses in Harrisburg. All small business, I believe, certainly represent the backbone of our economy. It's been a very difficult time as customers have disappeared, but bills have continued. And this grant program is hopefully a real lifeline to those businesses to be able to make it through from one end of this crisis to the other. We know it's not going to cover all the bills, but it is hopefully a real help. And it was a great collective effort on the part of many people, and we're very proud that we were able to put this together. In fact, checks are being issued starting tomorrow, and we're particularly pleased with the speed at which this program was able to deliver cash and get it back, broadly speaking, throughout the Harrisburg economy. Many other cities throughout the Commonwealth are looking at Harrisburg and have developed programs that are in fact modeled on this program. But we are really the first to be able to successfully deploy our resources collectively, quickly throughout the community. I also wanted to let people know that we have a proposal tonight at City Council for a phase 2 of this grant program. We are proposing using an additional $500,000 of community development block grant funding to help fund an additional phase to this program. Again, we recognize that $5,000, while meaningful, is perhaps not as much of a lifeline as certain businesses need, and we're hoping that we can inject even more money into the program. We also realize that despite sending letters to every licensed business in the city, there may be some that missed out on the first phase and would like to apply. So stay tuned, and we will have more information on a phase 2 of this program, hopefully coming soon, and then discuss tonight on Zoom during our City Council meeting. We have 3 businesses with us today that want to share briefly their stories and the impact of this grant on their operations with the media. But to introduce them and to tell you a little bit more about the program, I want to hand things over now to Impact Harrisburg's Executive Director, Ms. Sheila Dow-Ford, who really, along with Nona Watson here at the city, spent countless hours working through these applications, first devising a relatively straightforward application portal, but then working through those applications to make sure that we could have these great results that we are announcing here today. So, Sheila, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Peppenfuss. I'd like to say good afternoon to all who are joining us via Zoom today. This is a good day, and we've not had very many overall over the past few months, but I think it is a good moment for us as a city and for many businesses within the city of Harrisburg. As Mayor Peppenfuss indicated, we have actually announced that we have about 313 businesses that are receiving Neighborhood Business Stabilization Program grants of $5,000. These are businesses that are located within the city of Harrisburg that directly benefit the city of Harrisburg These are businesses owned by individuals and entities that really are invested in our community. And it is with great pride that I stand before you today and say that I represent a board that is committed, the Impact Harrisburg board, that is committed, deeply committed to the city of Harrisburg, and that we are also extremely proud and honored to have the opportunity to work alongside the city of Harrisburg in partnership in the way that is meaningful and that is necessary at a time such as this for communities, not only ours, but communities across our state and across our nation, to really do something that is important and that matters to help sustain and rebuild our communities. I had the opportunity today to introduce 3 of the businesses of the 313 that have received grant awards of $5,000. The individuals I will be introducing today are, and I will mention their businesses as well. The first is Hector Ortiz, who is the proprietor of the Roots of My Land Ecuadorian restaurant, which is located at 1432 Derry Street on Allison Hill in the city of Harrisburg. I think that the name says it all, Roots of My Land Ecuadorian restaurant. That really speaks to a great deal of pride in that Hector Ortiz has for his land of Ecuador, but also it's pride also for Harrisburg because it really reflects the diversity of our great city. The second person we will speak to today is Miss Andrea Musselman, who is the proprietor of the Elementary Coffee Company, which is a new business that I have, that I actually had the opportunity to patronize several times before businesses were required to be shut down because of COVID-19. The Elementary Coffee Company is located at 256 North Street in the Midtown section of Harrisburg. And I have to say that Andrea wrote the most wonderful letter thanking Impact Harrisburg and the city of Harrisburg for this grant of $5,000. It was such a heartfelt moment, and I called her and thanked her in turn for thanking us. And she is really going to speak to how this grant has had a really impacted her opportunities, to maybe reopen her business, to restabilize a bit. But also, she talks a little bit about, and I'll allow her to do this, but really about the nature of the grant. And she talks about the fact that it's not competitive. And I'm going to ask Andrea in a few minutes to speak to that. But I'd like to now also talk about our third grantee, and that is Angel Fox, who is a new entrepreneur, as is Andrea. Angel is a new entrepreneur in the city of Harrisburg. Angel is the owner and operator of Fox's Wash and Go at 1254 Market Street. And I had occasion to meet Angel a few months ago. I guess it was about 6 months ago or so, when she was just starting her business, when she was in the process of purchasing her business. It's a laundromat. It is essential. It's in a good place. It is, and she is a businesswoman who was doing things. So I have those 3 people who are here today, who are all 3 of whom are grant recipients. And I'd like to start by maybe asking Angel to talk a little bit about how the grant will help her in her endeavors as she really opens up, looks forward to reopening her laundromat and doing the sort of work that she needs to do. Angel?
Hi. Good afternoon, everybody. Let me start off by saying thank you so much for the grant. With me being a new business owner in a distressed neighborhood, it's hard for families to be able to afford to wash. So they're not washing a lot of loads of laundry. They're just stuffing the machines. So this money will allow me to repair the machines that are constantly breaking because of being overstuffed due to lack of money by the community. And we're able to buy sanitary stuff so that we can properly sanitize on a regular basis because there's more than one or two people in the laundromat at a time. So it really allows me to go in and wipe things down and Lysol and provide masks to customers who may not have masks. But it definitely allows me to purchase a new machine because we've had machines break since this whole ordeal because of the stuffing of the machines or not properly using them due to lack of money. So I definitely appreciate you guys for thinking of us and allowing us to stay open and function properly.
So Angel, you have an essential business. Your business has been qualified as an essential business under the COVID-19 kind of management regulatory scheme. So you have remained open. And and that's important to know because you've been through this entire time. What you have been doing is really servicing, as you said, a community that has, confronted some particular challenges. And so I'd like to thank you. And that was an eloquent testimony. Now what I'd like to do is to move to Andrea Musselman. And Andrea, you are also a new business person in the city. Relatively speaking, I don't know how long Elementary Coffee was open, but I know that you were really subject to a very kind of, a moment when it was just you're open, now you must shut down. How about that, right?
Yeah, well, to clarify, we have been in existence because we did have our incubation at the amazing Broad Street Market in Harrisburg that I know I've also received a lot of support from the Impact Harrisburg grant. So I think I can say on behalf of a lot of people located in the Broad Street Market, just thank you to the mayor, thank you to the city, and thank you to Sheila and all the work that you've been putting into providing these resources for all of us. But yes, our North Street location opened in October of 2019. So we were open for about 4 months and had to shut down. So this was definitely a very difficult time financially for us, having just prepared that location and expanded our goals. And our goals for our business was really initially and now was to provide for our community and to provide for our staff. And I know it has been extremely difficult for small businesses all around to not be able to fulfill that goal in the way that they feel like they were able to or were supposed to be able to. And so finding ways, I have to applaud every small business that I know and the ingenuity that has come out of small businesses finding ways to still provide for one another, provide support to the community, but also we still need help. So I really appreciate, particularly now as we look to hopefully be able to reopen North Street in this location that we put our heart and soul into building for the community, reopen it with the help of Harrisburg and Impact Harrisburg. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'd like for you, Andrea, if I can just ask you to add one final point, because earlier you talked about the fact that this is a good grant because you talked about how you felt, a sense that everyone needed to compete against one another. And this has a different feeling. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so thank you for bringing that up. I think the difficulty with a lot of these grants and a lot of the resources that are being spread around is the fact that they do have to be spread around. And so small businesses, we have found while we are sharing resources, there is this kind of idea that your neighbor might get it and you might not. So do you really want to tell everybody about an opportunity if it might limit your chances of actually getting these resources? What has been so beautiful about the Impact Harrisburg grant program is that everybody that I know got this. So when I received the email initially, I did feel guilty because we absolutely desperately need this money. However, I know so many other people desperately need it as well. And it was this kind of conflicting feeling of wondering who else also received it. And so branching out yesterday and asking a lot of friends, everybody received it. And I just think that is a beautiful testament to the care that this community has for each individual business and the position that they're in. So I really appreciate the fact that this is the first program I've been a part of that has felt very equal. And yes, so thank you.
Right, right, sure. Yes, that makes, what you said makes perfect sense. And it really does eloquently go to, and I think the mayor would agree, the way we wanted to structure this program. We really had eligibility criteria, and we wanted to fund as many businesses as we possibly could across the broad spectrum that the mayor identified. And so we are really hoping that we have really kind of hit the mark in that regard. And I think we've done a pretty good job thus far. I want to say that the mayor kind of stated earlier that we are looking at what we do as we move ahead. There will be a discussion at City Council tonight. We feel good about those who have received grants, but we also know that there is more to do. And I also want to say that we are also looking at, I don't want anyone who hears this who has not yet heard from us to be discouraged. We have done this in a very quick turnaround time kind of fashion. And so we have some other applicants that we continue to vet because we do have a process in place. And over the next few days, we will be, others will be hearing from us. So don't be discouraged, and keep the faith, and we'll see what happens, okay? Now what I'd like to do is, I'd like to move on to Hector. Hector is Hector Ortiz, Mr. Hector Ortiz, who was the proprietor of Roots of My Land Ecuadorian Restaurant. And Hector and I have known each other for years, so I'm going to call you Hector and ask you to talk about this restaurant with this wonderful, wonderful title, and the pride you feel, obviously, in the care you take with respect to just really being able to bring food from your homeland to people within the city of Harrisburg, and how this grant, the Neighborhood Business Stabilization Program grant, has been able to help you with that, okay? Hector.
Certainly, I would like to express the same that the other business owners mentioned, my gratitude to the mayor and to Harrisburg Impact, because this is certainly so much needed. We decide to invest in the city and to bring diversity and to bring the flavors of Ecuadorian food and try to enhance the diversity of the offerings in the city. And we just opened 5 months ago, and we are delighted to see 3 things from the city. One is to do the right thing, to do with kindness, and to do in a wise way. The right thing because investing in neighborhood impact allow us to keep moving forward and to keep investing and to keep trying to deal and beat these difficult times that we're facing. With wise because we are investing in the businesses, the city, and we are going to be giving back with taxes. We are going to be giving back. We are allowing employees to be in our settings and allow the economic development to move forward. And finally, kindness, because you include many other peoples. I just see today the diversity of the business ownership in the Harrisburg city, and I see that was made rightfully because you include specifically the small business owners, those entrepreneurs that just start and believe in the economic development of the city and the opportunities that we can find. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sheila. And thank you, everyone, for keep moving, because we need that support. And we are open just to go. We are not open again. This is a restaurant, but we are willing to serve you and to support you. And we have to support one another, as Andrea mentioned. We need each other's support, and we will do better. And we will do with your help and with your support. And we appreciate that because that is so much needed. Thank you from the bottom of our heart as entrepreneurs for this support to the business owners, small business owners in the city.
Hector, you are very welcome. To everyone who was on the call today, let me say that you just heard from 3 business owners in the city of Harrisburg who have given eloquent testimonies to just the diversity and the wonderful sense of community that really prevails on any given day within Harrisburg. That is what Impact Harrisburg and the city of Harrisburg, that is what we have partnered to lift up. There's an expression that small businesses are the backbone of America. We do believe that, and we are in our own way, trying to really provide financial support, understanding that, as one person said who sent me a letter thanking me, I have 4 members of the community of Harrisburg who are desperately would like to rehire. That is why we are doing this. So thank you. With that, what I'd like to do is to actually ask Mayor Eric Papenfuss to step back in, and perhaps we'd be happy. I'm glad to have the business owners here. I'm gushing. I'm sure they'd be happy to take some questions from those who are present, the media that's present today. I'm going back on mute.
Okay, Sheila, thank you. And thanks to all the businesses. That was really terrific. We'll take some media questions. Let me just remind everybody about the eligibility for the program. You had to be a city-based business, so you had to be in the city. You had to be licensed by the city of Harrisburg, and you had to have demonstrated an impact of COVID-19 on your business financially. Also, the majority of businesses had to have gross receipts that were under $500,000. So again, targeted towards the smallest of the small. We worked very hard to make sure that everybody would be a winner. We wanted to foster a sense of camaraderie and teamwork, and we're also hoping that this will lead to a sort of renewed sense of commitment from all businesses in the city to help us as we move forward when the time is right, to proclaim Harrisburg open for business and indeed a wonderful place to do business. So thank you to everyone, and if the media would raise their hand, we will go in the order that Momen directs.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The first question I see from Chelsea at Fox 43. I'll unmute you now.
My question is for the small business owners. I know part of this program was to help the smallest of small businesses, some of those who are not able to apply for, the federal small business loan that's being offered. I don't know if any of the 3 that are here could speak to that. Maybe if they weren't eligible, and just what this grant means to have money coming from somewhere during this time.
Yes, let's see. Angel, would you like to start? I think Chelsea's referring to like the payroll protection plan and other small business loans from the SBA. Can you talk about your experiences?
Yeah, I did not qualify for those, or maybe I didn't do the application right. I don't know. It was really complicated, so who knows? But this application process was simple and easy to apply for. So I'm grateful that I got it, and it does help with repairs. Me being a small business and buying a used business, this definitely helped, if that answers her question.
I think it does, and Chelsea, I'll also add that one of the problems with the payroll protection plan is that it required businesses to sort of bring their employees back and to spend money over a short time frame, an 8-week period. And in Harrisburg and in much of Pennsylvania, we're not ready to go back to work. We are following Governor Wolf's guidelines. We are taking a cautious approach. We certainly don't want to have a backsliding that makes the health emergency even worse and makes it harder. So I know businesses in Harrisburg that literally received the PPP grant, but then had to give that back because it just wouldn't work under the time constraints. So that's something else to consider. Also, this grant program could be done, and maybe the business owners could speak to the application, but it was something that probably didn't take more than a half an hour to do. Certainly didn't require a professional accountant or a long-standing relationship with a bank that is an impediment for some small businesses in filling out the others. But we worked hard to have an application that was simple and intuitive and straightforward for really any business owner. Chelsea, did you want to follow up?
No, that was it. Thank you. I do have one other side question, and maybe this is for Sheila. Is there anywhere that I can find a list of all 313 businesses that received a grant?
Chelsea, we are going to be releasing that list after we make sure that City Council and my board and the other and the mayor and all the other folks who the city officials and board members have the list, and after we have finalized it and gotten the release go ahead for that. But we will be releasing that list, and of course I will put you on my list of individuals to receive a copy of it. We're very, I mean, this is information that we really do want to highlight. This is good news. And I noticed that, if I may, Andrea also, I think, wanted to reinforce the message around the PPP as that eligibility may be processed perhaps as compared to this, the Neighborhood Business Stabilization Program grants. So I'd like to ask if Andrea, I noticed your hand was up, if you wanted to comment further.
Well, thank you. It's fine if I was skipped over, but I do want to also, just kind of reinforce the idea that I think that this process, the application process, was extremely straightforward and generous to anybody who is living in the city. So again, it made the application process accessible to, I think, everybody who looked into it. And that was a lot easier than so many of the other grants and opportunities that we looked into as a business. So indeed, like, I feel like the business was able, or the city was able to, Impact Harrisburg was able to present this in a format that made it a lot easier for all businesses to apply. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Andrea. And one further note about the list. So 313 businesses have already received award notifications and will start receiving their checks as of tomorrow. Originally, the Impact Harrisburg authorized funding for up to 350 businesses. And there are still some businesses that are in the process of being vetted. There were questions about the application, this sort of thing. So although we talk about a list, I would expect that list would grow a bit as we move forward. So consider it a initial list rather than a final list. And council will be getting that initial list tonight, and that will be part of the conversation this evening. Okay, Momin, who's next?
Next, we have Larry from the Berg.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, Larry.
Hi.
Hey, so I have kind of two related questions. The first one is, assuming that City Council approves the $500,000 tonight, how much is left in the fund? And the second question I have is about phase two, about the process. Do people need to reapply will applications from phase one, have they been exhausted? I'm just wondering about the process for phase two.
Let me start. Let me start with that,
Mm-hmm.
Sheila, and then
Sure.
if you can jump
Sure.
in. So the phase two would be a new application process. It would build on everything that we've done for the first phase, but it would be a new process, and it would be subject to some minor application changes that are required for the use of federal funds. So stay tuned on that. Originally, Impact Harrisburg and the city had jointly agreed on $1.75 million for the first phase. That would have funded 350 businesses at $5,000 each. As we've said, we funded 313, but there are some applications that are still being vetted. So that number could potentially grow up to potentially 350. But the second phase would be, again, if council approves, and again, that's going to be discussed tonight, that would be the use of federal COVID-19 funds, which are designed for helping the city through the impact of this health emergency. It is not all the funds. It's a proposal to use some of the funds for a phase two. And that could include both new businesses that were unaware or didn't have an opportunity to apply for the first phase, or potentially supplemental grants to businesses that did receive them, but still require more assistance to be able to make it through to the end. And again, our goal is to keep these businesses afloat so that when it is time to reopen, they have a fighting chance of surviving and bouncing back, hopefully stronger than ever. But hopefully that answers your questions, Larry.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'd like to add one point, and that
Sure.
is that with respect to the MBSP, this has been what I would call an iterative process. We, as Mayor Peppenfuss mentioned at the outset, we, meaning Harrisburg, we were among the first, and certainly perhaps the first of the smaller cities in the nation to introduce such a program. And because of that, we actually were able to leverage dollars already in place within the Impact Harrisburg Fund. And so what that gave us an opportunity to move in a bit, at a bit faster pace and in an earlier fashion than many other communities that are now using the federal dollars, the COVID funds that have been put in place with local municipalities through the state, as I understand that process. So we need to, as the mayor said, go back to the drawing board. We will await a discussion around how we at Impact Harrisburg can work with the city, perhaps around a second phase of this, this funding process, understanding that we've used we've used a portion of the 1.75 that is currently in the MBSP fund. So you're going to have, however, a separate fund, hopefully and presumably. And so we'll look at really being able to follow the guidelines and determining the role of Impact Harrisburg in relation to the partnership with the city and working to implement that once again to enhance our city, while also, though, keeping this in mind, while also ensuring that we administer the funds that are within the MBSP and do so using the list that we currently have in place. So we have simultaneous processes that are moving forward as is necessary and as is appropriate given the circumstances.
Thanks, Sheila. I think that's important to point out. Yeah, there were no federal funds used for the initial phase one. They were funds, essentially taxpayer dollars, that had been set aside for Impact Harrisburg as part of the city's initial recovery plan under receivership, as well as money that the city had from a revolving loan fund that had been dormant for several years. So phase two would be using federal funds. There are slightly different requirements with those funds, but many communities are using CDBG dollars to fund programs that are very similar to what we did with phase one. In fact, they've looked to Harrisburg and they've asked us for information about how we did things here to model their own programs on. All right, Momin, any other questions?
I believe those are the only questions regarding this topic, but we can open it up for questions on off topic if anyone has any.
Okay, I will just state, and there'll be a little bit more on this tonight, but we have received questions and comments about the fact that there were some indications that Dauphin County might defy the governor's order and move to a yellow stage ahead of what was being recommended from the Department of Health. I have been in communication with the commissioners. I have made it clear that the city's position is that we should be following the Department of Health's guidelines. The last thing we want to do, as I've said, is make it worse by backsliding at this critical juncture. We've had enough collective pain up to this point that we don't want to make matters worse, and we were going to let science and health officials guide us on when it was time to reopen, although we understand the pressures. My belief is the commissioners will not vote tomorrow to defy the governor's order, and I'm hopeful that we have that behind us, because I think it was confusing to the general public and hard for people to hear different things coming from different layers of government. We really need to all be focused on working together through this crisis and all have the same message, which really puts public safety first. And there'll be more on that tonight at the City Council meeting. So thank you all for coming, and thanks for being a part of this virtual press conference. I think the new forum worked well. Weren't able to do it in the atrium of City Hall, but we were able to do it virtually from all throughout the city. So thank you all for joining us. Thanks to the businesses. Thank you to the media for tuning in. And we will either see you tonight at City Council or maybe Friday at noon for another Facebook Live conversation coming up from studios. The topic for this week is going to be faith leaders throughout Harrisburg and how their churches and communities are coping with the crisis. Thanks.